We are so excited to see all of you. We know this is a super busy time of the year, especially after the holiday, and looking forward to the Christmas holiday and getting things wrapped up semester wise and evaluation cycle wise for the preliminary cycle for some of you. So we are so thankful that you carved out some time to be with us this afternoon. We know you're going to find this session particularly valuable, and we're very excited about it. Go ahead and enter your name and your district in the chat box. Welcome, Carson, Donna, Cheryl, Dr. Canada, welcome. Good afternoon, Sharon and Kathy. Megan, good morning. Good afternoon. I still think good morning. What's that about? I think I've spoken to just about everybody else. Good afternoon, Jeff. Bethany, good afternoon. If y'all could enter your name and your district in the chat box, we would really appreciate that. Aaron, good afternoon. We're going to get started momentarily. Please feel free to post any responses you have to the prompt that we have in the chat box. We are so interested in hearing how you are preparing for the statewide onboarding of the new special area evaluation instrument. So if you could share what you're doing or planning to do, that would be really helpful to all of us. Hi, Melissa, Susie, and Crystal, welcome. Welcome, Dr. Warren. So it is 2 o'clock. Again, welcome one and all. This is our December 2020 virtual office hours. I cannot believe that it is December already, but here we are, and we are so delighted to be with you this afternoon. We're so glad that you could make it. As I said earlier, of course, my name is Julie Hartwell, and I'm an education associate here in the office. I'm joined today by our director, Little Toe Monsacker, and of course, my faithful team members. I feel like I'm talking about the Justice League. You know, I just feel like these folks are so awesome. But my faithful team members, Ronnie, Beverly, Faye, and Kim, and of course, Dr. Trumpler is also on the line with us. So we just want to thank y'all for being with us today. So just a gentle reminder about some norms here in office hours. To make sure to eliminate any background noise, that you are muting yourself so that we can kind of eliminate that and kind of stay focused on what the speaker is saying. Please feel free, however, to turn your microphone on. If you want to share something, we'll have some pauses here and there to allow you to do that, or you can raise your hand and we'll recognize you either at the end of the presentation for your question. And of course, Beverly is our chat person, so she's going to be cycling through the chat to make sure that we don't miss any questions. But please feel free to utilize the chat to share any thoughts or concerns you may have as we go through this December 2020 office hours. Love it. Okay, all right. On the next slide, you'll see our agenda. And so for our agenda, again, welcome and thank you for sharing those reflections. I just want to pause for just a moment, and Kim, I apologize for this. Can you go back to the first slide, please? I did want to take a minute to review and to encourage you to review what some of your colleagues have shared about implementing the new special area evaluation instrument. And I also want to provide a bit of clarification for those of you who are not necessarily pilot districts. We understand that if you're not a pilot district, you're not necessarily engulfed in this work as of yet, but we will all be embarking in 21, is that 21, 22, next August. So we want to continually keep this idea that However you choose to do it at the district level, you do need to have some considerations around how you're going to get prepped up to be ready for launch in August of next year. So while if you're not piloting, you're not necessarily expected to have anything going on right now, we would encourage you to do that so that you're not caught in a bind. We know that you have to, for some districts, have to recruit who you're going to have serve as these special area evaluators. So you'll be recruiting some folks, you'll be training some folks, you'll be answering questions, and all of that takes time. So we want to keep this in the forefront of your minds about how you're going to make sure that come August, you are staffed appropriately across all three, if need be, all three special areas, and that you are not in a mad dash over the summer trying to get the work done. So that's why we are continuously putting this in front of you. And Beverly is going to talk a little bit more about some train-the-trainer opportunities later in the spring, or early in the winter and in the spring that we are going to have. So just kind of keep your ear to the ground for that. For all of the folks who have shared what they are doing, does anybody want to hop on the mic to kind of share something that they're doing in their district to get ready for onboarding of the new special area evaluation instruments come next August? Would anybody like to hop on the mic?
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hi.
Hey there. I'm Jacqueline in Avenett.
Hi, Jacqueline.
Hey there.
Avenett.
What I have done is created us an implementation timeline. So everyone by tonight will have been officially enrolled in their appropriate courses. We identified who would become evaluators. Okay. And then next week I have orientation scheduled for just a briefing, more of an introduction for all of the practicing educators in their area to let them know it's here, it's coming, to create some awareness. Mm-hmm. And I've set a deadline for us to finish our courses. And then once the courses are done, our next step in January is to actually do a full orientation for the educators in the 3 areas so that they're not hearing it fully for the first time. And I'm going to ask the others to help me in providing the orientation so that they can use what they gain from their coursework. And prayerfully in August, we'll do an orientation and we'll be ready to rock and roll.
Oh, that sounds wonderful. Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Devitt. And tell everybody what district you represent.
Clarendon School District 2, Manning.
She's in Clarendon too. Thank you so much for sharing, Dr. Devitt. I like that idea of kind of having that general little intro, even though that's not a requirement, because remember that the evaluator training is self-paced. But how lovely to know that you're going to gather together for about a moment to kind of make sure that everybody has a clear understanding of what they need to do going forward. So thank you for sharing that, Dr. Devitt. We appreciate that. All right, let's go back to the agenda. My apologies, everyone. So just a few reflections, and again, I encourage you to scroll through and see what some of your folks are doing, other folks are doing by looking in the chat. We're going to begin today's webinar talking about ADEPT reminders. Also going to share some induction and mentoring reminders. We've got some due dates kind of around the corner, so we want to make sure that you're prepped up and ready to go for that. As I mentioned, Beverly Flight is going to share some important special area updates. Then we have a very exciting part that we are so stoked about, and this is the idea about letting you know a little bit more about some of the virtual instructional resources that are available to you. And of course, we have a guest speaker from the Erskine Public Charter School District. So folks who have been doing virtual education for a long time are coming to us. She's coming to us to share some thoughts around virtual instruction, so we know you'll find that helpful. Rodney is going to facilitate that for us, Rodney Evans. And then, of course, we'll open up the floor for some Q&A at the end. So, without further ado, let's get into some ADEPT reminders. So remember that these ADEPT reminders are in addition to the things that you are already doing, but these are some of the ones that we want to highlight. On the next slide, you'll see some prompts, some things just to prompt your thinking so that we can avoid as many sticky wickets as we can at the end of the school year. So the first reminder is that by this point in the school year, and some of you may be far beyond this, but at a minimum, you want to make sure that you are reviewing the evaluation records. And as a caveat, if you are using SC Lead to track, and even if you're not, whatever system you're using, you just want to make sure that you have conducted a review of some sort to make sure at a minimum that your SLO preliminary conferences have been conducted at this point in the school year. And that's for both first semester SLOs and year-long SLOs. So that's one of the prompts that we want to make sure that you're staying on top of. So as I said, you don't get caught behind a wave of deliverables as we get closer to the end of the school year. Next, we feel like we should use the data that's available in SC Lead. We feel like this is yet another important reminder to check the status of evaluations in your district. So here are 3 buckets that we feel like you really ought to be on top of. We know that many of you are, but this is just a reminder. First, the idea that orientations are completed. These are things that may not be problematic right now, but at the end of the year, when you're ready to close out evaluations, as we look back, these are some of the things that kind of were hindrances for us at the end of the year. So we want to make sure we are as forward thinking as possible and giving you some reminders of how to avoid some of the confusion at the end of the year. So make sure that you are checking that your orientations have been signed and completed in SC Lead, if you're using SC Lead to track, of course. So how do you do that? You check your donut on your district homepage. If you're looking for a target percent, somewhere around 95% or higher. Of course, 100% is where we of course all want to be. But if you've got some stragglers behind, we can understand that. But 95% or higher is really where you need to be in terms of the number of orientations that are completed and signed. And you'll know that by checking the percent that's in the donut on your district homepage. You can click on details under the donut and it will show you who has not signed, and that will of course allow you to have a more targeted approach to how you get some of those cleaned up. Next, evaluations created. This was another point of concern for some last year, where folks that should have been evaluated were not evaluated and no evaluations were created for them. Okay, not that many, but they were there. So we want to make sure that you have evaluations created for everyone that should be evaluated in 2021. So how do you do that? You pull your staff evaluations report. So somewhere in your notes, you should have checking your district homepage and pulling your staff evaluations report, specifically to confirm that everyone who should be evaluated has indeed an evaluation created for them. That sets up a couple of things. Number one, it's a note for the educator when they sign in to SC Lead, and it also triggers some of the alerts in SC Lead to help you be reminded that there are empty bubbles or you get error messages, but all of those things are triggered by actually having an evaluation created. So we want to remind you to make sure that you keep your eye on that, especially now before we end the preliminary cycle for some of you. As a target, 95% or higher. Finally, as another bucket, this idea of missing contract levels. This can be quite a bother at the end of the school year if you have contract levels missing. And as I said, the system can't even support you if there's a missing contract level, because the contract level triggers the function in SC Lead. It's kind of your backup. It provides those error messages for you. It lets you know, hey, there's information messages out there that something is missing, but all of that is triggered by the contract level, because the contract level leads you to how many observations you should have, how many folks you should have on the team. But without the contract level, you don't get the sense of those error messages and that backup, if you will, that SC Lead is so deft in providing for us. So just want to make sure that you are checking that everyone has a contract level. How do you do that? again, you pull the staff evaluations report, and you'll see the column where contract levels are. Just scroll down the column, and if you see an empty slot, stop and investigate why that is empty. If it is empty, please go into settings, set the contract level, and that'll of course facilitate everything that happens after that, specifically as we get ready to plow towards the end of the school term. So finally, another reminder is of course to check team composition. Specifically as a reminder, make sure that your induction 1 and your annual diagnostic teachers, educators have mentors on their teams, okay? Another bother, if you will, at the end of the school year that'll stop you from completing an evaluation. And the teacher, if it's not loaded in the system, perhaps that's one that you forgot, that teacher doesn't get those supports, and that may cause additional concerns and challenges. So right now, please go in and make sure that for your induction 1 and your annual diagnostic teachers that you've got mentors on the team. And finally, as a reminder, we'll be getting in touch with you a little later in the spring about this, but if you have educators that you know are on highly consequential annual summative evaluations, they need to have 3 people on the team. So you need to go ahead and double check that now so that we are not put in territory of possible incomplete evaluations there. So for your folks that perhaps might be eligible for sanction, those folks that are on highly consequential evaluations, go ahead and please double check now that you've got at least 3 persons on the team so that we are in compliance on that part. All right, so those are just some brief reminders about where you are. We know you know them, but it always makes me feel better to know that I've at least shared that so that we're all on the same page. So thanks for hearing me out on that. And if you have any questions about any of that, you always have your ADEPT contact as support. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Dr. Howard, who's going to provide some other updates and some reminders around induction and mentoring. Dr. Howard?
So thank you, Dr. Hartwell. So like Dr. Hartwell said, we're just going to visit some of our reminders about induction and mentoring. So we're going to look specifically at the upcoming induction counts, just to give you some reminders about that. And we're also going to talk about that mentoring renewal credit reminders. So as a reminder, your district's induction count must be verified by February 1st. Your district is going to receive some funding based on the number of induction 1 teachers that are reported. So to determine these numbers, we'll review the evaluation records in SC Lead, and we'll reach out to you via email by January 20th just to verify that those numbers are accurate. So what can you do to ensure that your district's counts are accurate? Just please see to it that all induction 1 teacher contract and evaluation levels are entered in the SC Lead. And you can do this using either the bulk evaluations feature that's in the system or by using the import spreadsheet that's available for those who are not using the system directly. If you've done this process before, it has not changed. It's the same steps that you used last year. What we do want to remind you of is that these rosters are set up based on what's in SC Educator. So if your SC Educator list is accurate, then you should see an accurate list reflected in SC Lead. If you are new to your district or new to this role and you haven't done this before, just please reach out to us. We're happy to help. If you need any additional support, just please contact your regional rep. And another requirement we want to revisit is regarding our mentoring renewal credits. Remember that there's always been a requirement for mentors to engage in ongoing professional learning so that they could continue to grow and grow new teachers. But what the 2017 guidelines did was make explicit the number of hours and the time frame to meet this requirement. Mentors are still required to complete 18 hours of mentor-based professional learning during each 5-year mentor cycle. If a mentor has not participated in the SCTS evaluator training, then those first 18 hours are required to be that training. But if a mentor has been SCTS evaluator trained prior to becoming a certified mentor he or she should engage in other learning opportunities that will support their work with those beginning teachers. That prior training will not count towards those renewal credit hours. So what opportunities do they have? Well, if a mentor is already SCTS trained, other opportunities should indeed be considered, and that professional learning should really be focused on skills that are specific to supporting that mentor. Skills such as coaching or analyzing data. It could be some mentor-specific training provided by the district or school, content-specific training designed for the purpose of helping the mentor support the teacher in a particular area, or other skills related to supporting beginning teachers. Any professional learning that's not specific to supporting beginning teachers shouldn't really be considered for these renewal hours. If the mentor does engage in some content-specific training, there should be some extension that applies to their work with that novice teacher. Of course, an option that's available are micro-credentials, including those found in this stack that we are going to see here in the chat in just a minute. And these are just some examples of professional learning opportunities that will support mentors that are working with beginning teachers. These are really good opportunities for these mentors to engage in work that is going to help them grow, and they can do it on their own time and receive that credit for it. Remember that we do have that feature in SC Lead that will allow you to track those credit hours for each mentoring cycle. If you have any questions about these slides, specifically in regards to induction and mentoring, please go ahead and post them in the chat. But I am now going to turn it over to Beverly so that she can share with you some reminders about special areas.
Thanks, Kim. Just a friendly reminder to those districts who may not yet have identified and notified me who their SAM, who will serve as their special areas manager or their SAM, please email the name of your SAM to me as soon as possible. We've added 2 spring sessions of our virtual trainer training on January 26th and May 7th. As soon as I finish the slide, I'll drop those registration links in the chat box. And they also were included in our newsletter last week, and so you can click them from there. Our office has begun collecting the survey results and will continue to request feedback from our pilot districts in our efforts to continue to fine-tune these new instruments for our speech professionals, our school counselors, and our school librarians. Should you have any questions or need support with Moodle or any of the special areas evaluations, please contact me at bflythe@ed.sc.gov. I'm here to help. And now I'm kicking it over to Faye.
All right. Thank you so much, Beverly, for the special areas reminders, and good afternoon again, everyone. For this section on virtual instruction resources, we want to provide a little bit more insight on the resources that we've already shared with you. So we understand that your plates are always full, and we'd just like to take the opportunity to better acquaint you with the NIET virtual instruction resources. So for the first resource, let's look at the Virtual Learning Handbook. This slide is hyperlinked to the resource, and Beverly, our lovely chat person for today's office hours, will be dropping the link in the chat shortly. So in the chat, I am wondering if any of you have had the opportunity to look into this resource. So if you have, if you would just please type Y, which stands for yes, to see if any of you have looked into this resource. Wow, thanks Trish, Erin, yes, Cheryl, Sharon, Lucretia, awesome. All right, okay. Many are saying yes, so I'm very happy that our resources are being used. There are 62 attendees in today's virtual office hour, so I would actually like to request some of you that said why in the chat to just raise your hand to so that I can pick a few volunteers to share in what they have already done with this resource, how they're utilizing this resource. Again, we want to learn from you. We are all collaborators and you are experts in your field. So if I don't see any hands go up in a little bit, I will just request a friend to share. Oh, I see Trish is ready to share. Trish, please hop on the mic and let us know what have you used from this resource, how it has helped you? Take it away.
Well, I've actually shared it with our curriculum department down the street, the Office of Academic and Innovation. What we're planning to do, we felt like at this point in the year, we've got so much PD going on with our people. We are going to probably in the spring sit down and kind of go through it and come up working together with some PD that can be done along to help prepare teachers even more for next year, because I don't think any of us think virtual learning is going completely back. I don't think we'll ever go completely back to where we were. But we wanted to make sure, rather than just give it to someone and say, hey, this is a really neat resource, we wanted to be able to make sure that we have the PD to back it up, that we're chunking that information, that we're all on the same page at the district level. But one piece of this document that I really like is when you go into the deep dives, it is pointing out specifically other indicators that showing you how to make those connections with the rubric, very visual and very specific, which I think is a neat thing to talk about, but it's very different to actually see it in writing for people.
Absolutely. I appreciate you mentioning that you don't want to just hand it. You want to chunk this and be purposeful, intentional. It's kind of like when we rolled out the new evaluation model, right? And gave the rubric. We didn't just email the rubric. You had to go through training so that you could understand it. And that's exactly what you want to understand. This does not replace the rubric. This is, a resource that helps with a virtual setting. And I think George kind of had a question here. Is that not a train-the-trainer training? It is not a train-the-trainer training. This is just a resource on how to transition from the classroom, from your face-to-face setting to the virtual setting. Anybody else that said yes? I think we have time for one more person to volunteer. Let me check if any other hands are up. Okay, I think Trish is the only one that wanted to share on that, but I do appreciate you sharing again, Trish. So we'll just move on to the next slide and look at, what else does this virtual learning handbook have to offer. So one thing I want to highlight is that within this handbook, you will find that it is broken down into 3 stages on how to transform lessons from in-person to virtual. So a few indicators are covered in each stage, so it is not overwhelming. For stage 1, it covers presenting instructional content, motivating students, and academic feedback. For stage 2, it covers standards and objectives, lesson structure and pacing, activities and materials, questioning, and teacher content knowledge. And then for stage 3, it covers grouping students, teacher knowledge of students, thinking, and problem solving. So for all stages of transformation, you will see that what can be done at the start, middle, and end of the lesson. So you can see that like on this, well, on one of the pages in the virtual handbook. And then you will also see the suggested asynchronous and synchronous strategies. So you see that here on the right hand side, well, the right two columns showing on your screen. And stage 1 also shows connections to the other indicators in the rubric as shown on this slide. So you'll see that this one is around academic feedback, and the components herein, it's showing you where it's tied to questioning, thinking, lesson structure and pacing, and assessments. So if you're looking for a place to focus teacher professional development, our office suggests academic feedback as an important starting point for creating engaging and meaningful virtual learning opportunities. And moving on. All right, so in the NIET Virtual Learning Handbook, you will also find this section on supporting social and emotional learning in everyday instruction. This is found within pages 59 to 63. On this slide, you'll see the screenshot of page 60. So on this page, NIET reminds us of the importance of supporting students' social and emotional learning as part of instructional practice. So you see that like on the upper section and the blue section on this screenshot. So this has a list of SEL strategies in the virtual setting. So I think it's very interesting that using emojis to check how students feel is a simple practice educators can easily apply. And I believe that it's so easy to apply, and we're going to give it a quick application in our setting right now. So in the chat, pick an emotion that you feel right now. There'll be no judgment. You can feel however you want to feel, but don't be surprised if we reach out to you if you express a strong emotion of frustration or anger. Hopefully there's none of that. But to locate the emoji, it's right below where it says type a new message. There should be like a smiley face. And if you hover that, it will actually say emoji. Ooh, love that. Chilling, Nikki. Okay, I already see Lucretia's response, and that's the same response. Come on, have it there. Keep picking that emoji. If you don't have that feature, you can also have like a colon and type in a word without a space. And it should populate some words, such as like if I do, I was just about to say that as a model, a Christmas emoji. So thanks for that, Sherry. So you can do that, and you can do old school, right? We're not gonna let the technology features or lack thereof get in the way of students participating. So if you don't have that, you can type in the word, right? In some of our trainings, we actually would have a slide with the numbers corresponding to the emojis. So there's different ways to get to how your participants are feeling. The most important thing that we're trying to get to is that you want to express that sense of humanity just by checking how your participants feel. So I'm glad many of you are happy and Christmassy hearts. But circling back to social emotional learning, we'd also like to encourage you to check out extensive SEL resources available that our agency has put together. So Beverly will also drop that link in the chat. So we have a resource that was created by our agency specifically around SEL. Okay. So for our last section in the virtual learning handbook that I want to highlight, it is the last page on that resource, page 90 as shown here. It has many videos that are useful to help you figure out which one you may want to start watching without being overwhelming. The approximate times are on the slide. Also, just to let you know, when you visit or click on any of these videos, you'll find some video links at the bottom, and some of those are not necessarily related to virtual teaching, but maybe of interest to you or your educators. Some videos are tied to instructional leadership or teacher leadership. And one video that I particularly think is interesting is the NIET interview with the South Carolina principal, Mike Sinclair, leading through motivation. So I put that link on the slide as well. For those that have attended our coaching conversations training, Mike is in that video, so he might look familiar to you, but he's really good at finding a way to find a platform wherein he's able to showcase a strength of an educator. So that is pretty much what the interview is all about, encouraging other teachers to visit other teachers' classroom, trying to showcase those who show strength in a particular indicator or skill. And for my last slide, I want to wrap up this section with this other NIET virtual instruction resource. So this is a screenshot of that. The slide title is hyperlinked, and Beverly will be happy to drop the link to that resource. So when you go to this page, you will see that there's learn more under each of the topics that you wish to explore. So for top free tools and templates to plan for 2020-21 virtual learning, you'll have like similar resources as the NIET virtual handbook. Top free virtual instruction resources has the videos I shared in the previous slide. Health, safety, and policy provides COVID-19 information resources. Tools and platforms for student learning is a list of NIET curated resources of remote learning for teachers and families. So that list, it doesn't mean that, you know, it's endorsed by NIET or our agency, but it's just pretty much showing different resources of blogs, videos around remote learning. And then for the professional learning strategies and ideas for educators, you'll see links to, again, videos I presented in the previous slide, plus resources such as the free NIET learning module, as well as strategies and ideas for administrators from lessons, reflections, and various webinars. So now I will end this portion by sharing that our partner NIET added new dates to the free SCTS 4.0 rubric virtual instruction training series. So if you haven't attended that or your educators have not had the opportunity, I encourage you to have them register. I've been to 3 of the mini trainings, and it's been a very, very helpful training, and we try to actually apply some of the learnings, you know, little by little in our own trainings. So without further ado, I'll turn over the mic to Rodney Evans to introduce our special guest.
All right, thank you so much, Faye. All right, so good afternoon, South Carolina educators. My name is Rodney Evans, who many of you are familiar with by now. Again, my role is SLO coordinator, and I also support my assigned districts with ADEPT support, which also includes Erskine Charter School District. And on today, you can go to the next slide, Kim. On today, we have with us special guest presenter, Michelle Klein from South Carolina Connections Academy and the Erskine Charter District, and she serves as their PD coordinator there. Her presentation today will review the process for virtual evaluations and also give ideas and what evaluators can look for as far as virtual evidence of indicators in the instruction domain. She will also provide virtual teaching ideas and many resources for teachers teaching virtually that align with the instruction domain. For those of you out there who are certified evaluator trainers, this is good information to apply in your practice of training evaluators in your district. A copy of this presentation will also be available for you to share with your school leaders and coaches as well, and those who could benefit from this presentation. Again, we appreciate Michelle sharing with us on today, and I now present to you Michelle Klein, PD coordinator for SC Connections Academy, and we'll give her time now to share her screen because we'll have to transition with that. Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Michelle Klein. I am a professional development coordinator at South Carolina Connections Academy. I'm a Google certified educator and SCTS Train the Trainer and an ADEPT coordinator. Once I am able to start sharing my screen, the presentation is basically set up to provide links and information so you can give your teachers and evaluators resources to use at your schools. And as soon, I am working on getting sharing permissions right now. So I'm just gonna wait 1 minute for that. But while we are waiting, why don't you all tell me how you feel about virtual instruction in relation to evaluations at your school? And you can go ahead and give me an emoji of how that has been going for you at your schools. And I will wait for those in the chat.
And Michelle, we also have it queued up. If to work, we have it queued up to go for you.
I am seeing the button now, so let me see if I can go ahead and do that. I think I can.
Okay, great. Thank you again.
All right. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, we can, Michelle.
We can see it.
All right, awesome. Okay, so how do you all feel about virtual instruction in relation to evaluations at your school? So you can just pick the number that relates to the pictures you're seeing on the screen, 1 through 6, and you can go ahead and put those in the chat box for me. All right, so I'm seeing a 3. Yes, I always feel like dancing when I get to see all of the cool things that teachers are doing when I go in to evaluate their classes. Okay, 4, yeah, sometimes we're, especially when COVID first hit, some of us that weren't doing virtual can be very overwhelming. There's so many new things that we need to do and look for in evaluations. You could also see that teachers that you're evaluating could do this for a warm up with some of the students at your schools and modify it however they want. So at SCCA, for continuing contract teachers, we follow this announced procedure. Evaluator selects a time and date to observe. We conduct a pre-conference. So as an evaluator, we send them an invite to the pre-conference date. We go into a synchronous lesson in our platform that we use. All of you may use different things. It may be Zoom, it may be Meet. And we do script that lesson. Our staff does our live sessions. Now, some are longer at the elementary level, but then at the end, when the observation is complete, we have the teacher fill out the self-reflection document. And then we conduct the post-conference, and we do this every time. So regardless of what contract level our teachers end up being, they are used to this process. They know it, they're familiar with it. They use the rubric and they feel comfortable doing so. We give them that reinforcement area, that refinement area, and we give them their scores. Now I'm going to just escape out of this for 1 second because the rules are the rules. So what I did for our organization is I created this digital adept binder. So what this does is just clearly communicates to our evaluators. We do have almost 250 staff members now. So it does clearly communicate to evaluators who are assigned to specific teachers at contract levels and teachers, you know, what the expectations are. They have the binder, they can ask questions, so they can just navigate the different tabs. And then if you click here, these are all clickable. I'm not going to go into each area for the sake of time, but this is in the notes section of the presentation. So if you want to look through it and see how we set that up, but we basically walk them through those processes, dates, and so forth. So that is the binder. And you can see that I put a lot of those editable things. So if you want to recreate any of that for your schools, you are welcome to do so. So in conjunction with the rubric, and of course, you all were looking at all of the great NIET resources when I jumped in here, but ultimately, you know, we need to be seeing focused instruction, guided instruction, collaborative learning, and independent learning in the virtual environment. Like that is an expectation. We have very high expectations for our teachers to be doing that and for evaluators to be encouraging that in the virtual environment. So I want to take you through some examples of what that looks like and sounds like and some of the activities that our teachers do. And then they are template-like for the sake that you can use them, bring them to your teachers, and I'm sure they'll do wonderful things to modify them. And some of, your teachers may already be doing a lot of these great things, which is really exciting. So as I go through, I just want you all to be thinking, what indicator or indicators the activities corresponds to. And, how could we make this work and encourage our teachers to be using these tools and activities with our kids. And then, of course, I just linked a fun 3D Bitmoji example here because it's a great way to engage students in communications and get them to read and engage in activities. So the first thing I have here is a project option choice board, and this is clickable. And what's really great about this is it provides students with some choice, and all of these are hyperlinked to actual resources you can encourage your teachers to use. Now, I just put a few things linked here, but you can see that you could have a student for any content area do a reading, watch video, do some vocab practice in a platform, and then select a project option. So maybe they want to choose song lyrics or a podcast, create a discussion video using Screencastify, or create a newsletter in Canva. So you could see all of the wonderful things here that the rubric promotes that students can be creating and designing virtually. And then, of course, you can explore all of the links to the extensions or things like Flipgrid that you can use or your teachers can use. And then, hold on. This is just jumping around all the digital things that happen when we're presenting. All right. So next is a team activity template. So it's really important to be giving academic feedback to students. And I know when I walked in, Faye was highlighting that as one of the rubric pieces. So you can have students collaborate and give each other feedback. So how do you do that? You can give students an assigned team, and in the notes, I give you a video on how, teachers can assign teams with their kids beforehand. They can thoughtfully group them, with grouping students. And then the teacher can create an activity prompt in Flipgrid. Students can see the teacher model it on video, read the activity directions, and then students are required to create their own video and watch all the videos that they were, that of the group members for which they were assigned. And then they can pick 2 classmates and create video responses in response to their video. So you're getting that student to student feedback. Then if I were the teacher or I were an evaluator, I'd be looking for the teacher giving students video responses and feedback. And then they can share one thing they learned on the Padlet at the end. So they're sharing what they learned, they're generating ideas from the lesson, which is all really exciting. So here's another way to give academic feedback and have students be creating and designing virtually. So this is, again, just a template. You could really, I set this up for a historical figure because I was previously a social studies teacher. But you could really do this for anything, a scientist, characters in a novel. I mean, really, you could modify it however you want, but you could have students basically create a social media profile without being on social media. And I, of course, for presenting instructional content, would want to have an actual example for kids, model it. But then what's really great is students can work on here in real time. They can see each other's work. They can follow the prompts. And then you can use the comment feature so the teacher can comment on the students that are working. And then at the end, you could have students comment on each other's. So maybe you have them pick 1 or 3 or however much time permits. And the nice thing is you could even do this after class ends, right? Students could come in here and leave comments. So that, is really exciting. So you just want to make sure you have the proper permissions for that. And all these are linked in here. So you can make copies and give them back to your teachers and evaluators. So digitally, it is harder to have students manipulate the environment. I mean, it is. It's just one of those things where you have to be creative. So this is just a small sampling of like the basics of using virtual manipulatives and slides. Now, at SCCA, we also use things like Nearbot and PureDeck, so students can manipulate the environment and draw. This is one way you can do it in slides. So students could play around with these words, make different combinations, write them down. Another one is, they can play with words to make sentences, counting practice, or maybe you set it up, we're reading a chapter and you want students to generate, various things by manipulating and coming up with various ideas, and they could all be very original and creative. And then let me go back 1 second. So then not only are there manipulatives where you could have students create sentences or poetry, math, and there's very creative to higher level things that you can do with math as well. But then there are vocabulary games or just games in general that you can use. So for instance, here, this is a game. So you can have these digital pieces that teams of students can move around, or maybe you want a couple of kids doing one of these together, however you want to set it up, but there's a lot of different options that the teacher can use to play. And then they start at start, and there are virtual dice when all of this loads. And depending on what color they land on, maybe they provide a synonym or an antonym. Maybe they act out a word on webcam, which is super fun. And you could pretty much set this up for however you want. I did vocab here. And then there is tic-tac-toe. And then it's funny, do students play to win? Do they pick what they know? And they can really manipulate that. And maybe they do this in pairs. And you have them work and submit their board and share what they learned. And again, this could be for any content area where you have vocabulary, or it could be modified. Okay, so then it's always nice. So these are all activities that you could incorporate into a lesson. So now it's about, taking these activities and then seeing them come together in a lesson. So what I provided is this HyperDoc template, which is nice because then you could take it for primary students, for secondary students, and you could put in the activities that the teacher wants to create for their content area. So maybe it's ELA, maybe it's math, maybe it's even social studies. So what I did is, just the basics of the I CAN, of course, supporting essential questions and standards, but then having, exploring. So I just provided some instructions on how to insert videos, how to clip those, and then explain. What's really exciting is you could add a video prompt, like an audio prompt, insert it, students could listen to it, they could write their response. And then we have the apply category with Flipgrid, where you could have them respond to an application type of question, have them respond to one another, and then of course incorporate your choice option for the final. So maybe they create a storyboard. And what did in Book Creator? So there's lots of options, but this is just a template that can be easily modified or changed. And then what I did is I put some primary HyperDoc samples on fractions and theme, just to kind of show you what it looks like with the content inserted. And you could view these in more detail because you'll have the links. But these are early primary. And of course, there's a lot in here, so we'll let it load. But, you know, students basically go through the same way. This is promoting reading through Discus. And then they listen to a book. And then I'll just let the headers load. But it really walks through the same process. So explain, explore, explain, write, apply, and then create. So down here, you could move manipulatives, you could give students prompts, they could create basic fractions after going through all of the activities. And then that's just another way you can assess for that understanding. Can they do and show you what they can do, moving the objects. And then what I did was set up a similar one for theme with ELA. So you'll have an introduction, and it basically takes you through that same process using various platforms and everything integrated that I had shown you all earlier. And again, there's a lot of graphics and things in here, so they take a minute to load, but it goes through the same, kind of the same look. And this is just the basics of what some of the trainings I do at SECA for teachers to get a feel of some of the things they can do. So again, promoting those great Discus resources, going into explain where they can watch this brain, pop video on theme, talk about theme in their own words, you know, do some exploring, and then you can go into these more, but then there's apply and create. So that brings me to the end of the things that I brought to show you all of what evaluators can promote with their teachers and some of the resources you can give your teachers so they can create great digital lessons and set up a really great engaging classroom community virtually. So how are you feeling after this session? Faye was talking to you about emojis. I would like more information about, or what else do I have? I smiled when, and I was surprised that. So why don't you share a final thought and finish this, to finish out the session, and then I'll turn it back over to the hosts.
Michelle, if you're comfortable while folks are typing their emojis in and getting their feedback into the chat for you, do you mind sticking around for a couple minutes for questions?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Awesome. So I'll start by saying thank you so much for coming. It's really cool when we collaborate across schools and across districts. And as someone who is a lifelong charter educator, I think sometimes we get the bad rep of collaborative. So just super appreciate you making time to be here. And I'll open the floor up for questions. I also know that we are close to the end of our time, so we understand if any of y'all have to bust out, but if you want to stay here and talk to Michelle, we will open the floor up to you.
And while we're waiting to see if there's any questions, I just wanted to thank you all for having me, and I hope you have a wonderful afternoon. And I really enjoyed being here and getting to share all of these ideas with you all.
Awesome. Thank you.
Michelle, we're getting just lots of thanks for you being here and sharing these ideas. I think one of my big takeaways from your presentation is that there are so many resources out there we can share with principals and educators in our district to get this bit of a heavy lift done, and that it's across grade levels, and I think suits every learning modality that a child could need or want. So that was my big takeaway. So just thank you for that. Thank you ever so much. we're going to go ahead. We know that you are musing over all of that wonderful information, and Michelle's going to stick around in case you are still going to put something in the chat box. Yes, Sherry, she did a fantastic job. We're also, as Lula said, open to ADEPT and PADEPT questions if you have them. Angie will look into getting that Google Slide link operational. Because we know it is information that we can all use. So thank you for that. While you're putting in your questions for Michelle, we did have one frequently asked question to share with you, and it may be beneficial to folks on the line. Changing gears for just a bit, what happens if observations aren't able to be completed by the end of the preliminary period due to a teacher's absence related to COVID-19? So in response to this question, you know, our goal and probably your ultimate goal is to support teachers who are not absent more than 20% of the days in your district's approved cycle, to of course get them to get towards a complete evaluation this year. Because you know we have that written in our regulations, they have to be present at least 20% of your district's approved evaluation cycle. So we know that's the goal, to get everybody who meets that minimum to complete their evaluation. But we know that in some cases, the district's ADEPT timeline in the ADEPT plan can be edited to address concerns that you may have related to the pandemic, or even to extend the preliminary cycle for special cases, okay? In some cases and for special cases, recognize that there may be some considerations around your ADEPT timeline. You'll need to, as always, to make sure that if this is something you're considering bringing to us for us to look at in the Office of Educator Effectiveness, that there are at least 45 days in each evaluation cycle. So that's your initial consideration before you even bring it to us. You need to make sure that you have at least 45 days in the cycle. And if that is the case, and you feel like this is a pressing issue for a particular educator, make sure you contact your education associate with any specific questions you have regarding any edits, of course, you want to make. And in relation to this question regarding any COVID-19 absences, editing your ADEPT calendar, or any questions you might have around specific educators if you have concerns about their COVID-19 related absences. So just wanted to make sure that, since that was a frequently asked question, that we were able to get that to you. Trish, I think you still have your hand raised. Did you have a question you wanted to hop on the mic? And Sherry, I agree. Michelle radiates enthusiasm for teaching and learning. She is dynamite. Yes. Thank you so much. Trish, did you still have your hand raised? Did you have a question you wanted to hop on? Okay. Thank you. We see you taking that down. We appreciate that. We did have a question seeking some clarity around the idea of summative evaluations, having to have 3 people on the team. No, unless your district requires that. Remember that sanction happens at the annual contract level, and the folks that are on highly consequential already have 1 annual summative not met. To have the second annual summative not met means that they could possibly be eligible for sanction. And so that year of them having that possible, for them to attempt annual summative a second time is considered their highly consequential year. And so that's why in that year at the annual summative contract level, we're asking that they are required to have 3 people on the team, but not just summative in general. And then I think we also had another question earlier, and Dr. Howard, I think this one is around induction. How are mentor hours tracked? And that was much earlier in the presentation.
Yeah, Julie, Lila provided her the document that kind of outlines how that works in SC Lead.
Okay, thank you for that.
It's in the chat.
It's in the chat, okay. I apologize, I didn't write down the educator's name, but that answer is in the chat. Beverly, did we miss any other questions, as we are 2 minutes over, but I just wanted to make sure.
No, I think you hit them all.
Okay, great. Thanks, everybody. Y'all have been wonderful. Let's give another round of applause for Michelle. Yay! You are awesome, little lady. We appreciate you. We look forward to learning from others as we go through this year of uncertainty, but one that is certainly within our wheelhouse to handle and to handle well. So thank you. We'll see you again in office hours in 2021. Can't believe it. We'll see you. Thank you so much. We'll hold on in case you have other questions. Please feel free to put them in the chat. Thanks, everybody.